Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Bryce, talking to you about you and your business. And if you got any European investment funds, you might want to look at them with a new level of sobriety than you have in the past, because total pandemonium is happening in Greece. And, and I looked at the Guardian this morning in the UK. The headlines is all about Greece because, a lot of Greek debt is in England, and a lot of Greek debt is in other parts of Europe as well. I'm sure Germany has its fair share. And I tell you, this is a very, very sobering situation, and it goes back to the too big to fail scenario. And I think the lesson a lot of these countries are going to be getting, particularly when I say a lot of these countries, particularly Germany and France, is that when a country gets to the point where it's going into this kind of spiraling debt, it's probably best to just let them go and to cut them off than try to bail them out, because we see what they do when you try to bail them out. We see what Greece has done. They already agreed to pay these debts. They're acting like they're being blackmailed. Yeah, they're being blackmailed by themselves, by their own behavior. It's like that crazy Richard Pryor movie where he puts a gun next to his head. Oh no, it's Blazing Saddles. The sheriff puts a gun next to his head and he goes, "Get back or the black man gets shot." Yeah. It's like, get back or the debtor gets shot. Well, guess what? You are the debtor. You're the one who put yourself in this mess. What do you think about that?
Well, I think
that's Sigmund Kramer about to talk about it.
I think there's only one man who can, shall we say, step in and save the situation. There's only one man. His name is the Tidy Bowl Man.
The Tidy Bowl Man.
That's Greece's economy. That's Greece's economy, and that's the Greek people going down the toilet right now. They've been flushed. They flushed themselves, Kevin. 61% plus of the voters voted no on the referendum this past weekend, and they decided that, hey, they just didn't want any more spending cuts, and they didn't want any higher taxes, and so they're just not going to go along with shall we say, cooler heads or rational people or
grown-ups
or people who honor their debts and actually pay back what they owe. Basically, they're a bunch of petulant children, and we need to take a real long, hard stare at ourselves, because right now we're starting to look a lot like the Greeks, and not in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We should have had the I'm looking the man in the mirror bumper music.
Yeah, I try to avoid Michael Jackson bumps at all costs, but that's fine. We can do that. Or Greased Lightning.
Greased Lightning, that's a good song.
Yeah, it is. It is. If I were living in Greece right now, I would be mortified.
I'd be scared
if I were
to death.
visiting Greece right now.
You can get 30 euros out of your account a day is the limit, because they're trying to prevent bank runs.
Did you hear about the honeymooners that were here in the United States and New York, and they were on their honeymoon trip? They're from Greece, and they got locked out of everything. So once their cash was gone, they had absolutely no money, nothing. The credit cards, nothing would work because of
from hell.
Because of what's going on. And so they relied on the help of the local Greek Orthodox Church and some very nice benefactor to cough up a couple $1,000s to help them get through this. And it's got real world ramifications for Greeks no matter where they are.
No matter where they are. Yeah, it's tragic. It's and to me, it goes back to moral hazard. Them bailing these countries out was eliminating moral hazard, and it created a sense of entitlement, like dealing with a teenage child. It's amazing. The more that we give inappropriately, the more they resent the giving and the giver. To me, there's a morality tale, and it's, and we look at this whole too big to fail concept, and we usually talk about it in the context of financial institutions, and our economy, our recovery has produced half as many jobs as any previous recovery. half as many jobs. I think part of it has to do with the sickness, the toxicity in our overall economy and our businesses out there. And what's interesting is right now, countries around the world that have taken a different approach are actually doing, for example, Iceland, which of course is a very small country.
And they were bankrupt.
They allowed every company that behaved inappropriately to go bankrupt, regardless of how big it was. They didn't want the bailouts. They didn't want to be financially held hostage like other countries. They let all of them go bankrupt. They are now approaching 2% unemployment.
Right.
They are about to have the lowest unemployment of any country in the world. And the reason why is that worked. And that forced every company to say, we better act like big boys and we better act extremely efficient or this is going to happen. And what's his name? Joseph Schumpeter talked about creative destruction. This is an example of creative destruction. It looks bad, but it makes them stronger, better, healthier. And what we have done is the exact opposite. And what Greece has done is just horrific.
Iceland followed the Dave Ramsey format of how to get your finances in order and to take your budget seriously and all that. And Greece is, they're spending like drunken sailors.
Yeah, they are.
Which makes a lot of sense considering they're in Greece. But
he said that was Sigmund Kramer. When you send your emails, that was not Kevin Price.
Yeah. So where to go from here? I mean, are they going to leave the EU? Are they going to get kicked out?
More than likely, because they are a bunch of sick codependents, particularly Germany. There's a high likelihood they're going to come up with a plan B. I think they're going to come up with a plan B.
So the Greeks just bluffed? I mean, they just called the bluff. They said, hey, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You going to kick us out? What are you going to do?
Prime Minister has acted like it's been a bluff the entire time. Prime Minister has acted that way.
Yeah, and the finance minister.
Yeah, who I think resigned.
Who rode off on his motorcycle.
Yeah, they said he resigned, but I think he was. I think that's a euphemism for being fired. He had burned so many bridges along the way. The British hate him, absolutely loathe that dude.
Well, it's a mess. I mean, it's a beautiful country, and now they're, they're basically, hey, they might as well just start printing money like we do.
Yeah, I will say this, that they probably should have considered amortizing this debt differently than what they did, simply because they live in a competitive world, and they totally cripple Greece from being competitive and attracting the kind of companies that would generate the revenue to pay off that debt.
Right.
Greece is coming to a place that if you had the ability to move your capital, you were going to move your capital. And how does that help Greece pay off its bills?
It doesn't. Even their exports have hurt because, they were known worldwide as the place for olives, for olive oil.
Olive oil.
Guess where has taken over? Spain and Tunisia.
Yeah.
And to a lesser extent, Italy. If you go to get a bottle of olive oil, most likely it's going to come from Spain, Tunisia, and Italy rather than Greece. And
it used to be Greece was the word.
Greece was the word, and now mud seems to be their name.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's a very, very sad day for the people of Greece. I think it's a scary day for them, but it's a scary day for everyone who is financially interdependent with them.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, and maybe a more appropriate word would be codependent, economically codependent with them.
Well, in this global economy, we're going to feel the ripples here. I mean, people's 401k have dropped precipitously in the last couple of weeks. Why? Because of what's going on in Greece.
Yeah, and a lot of people have, mutual funds and those type of things that have tie-ins to Greece. People, I tell you, it's going to be a, like I said, very sobering week for them. And it was interesting. I heard a reporter on NPR talking about what it was like in Greece today, and he said the word hangover is what comes to mind. A bunch of people who had been, in an adrenaline rush, either fighting for or against this thing, and now they're just completely exhausted, and now kind of just sitting in what they accomplished.
Right.
Which is a pretty abysmal situation.
Similarly happened in Scotland not too long ago when they were deciding whether or not to secede from the United Kingdom.
Yeah, except the implications weren't nearly as huge.
No. But I mean, those folks had been fighting either for or against, and it came down to the wire, and it was very close. And then they had a kind of a hangover the next morning too. These big votes. I mean, the big ramification style votes. They definitely have that effect afterwards.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if and I have a couple of conspiracy theories, frankly, kind of bouncing around in my head regarding it. Prime Minister is a communist.
Let me get this going.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the X-Files music. Thank you. So the Prime Minister is a communist. The guy has a history of communist. He was a hardcore communist at one point. And you got to remember, what Rahm Emanuel said about a good crisis.
Oh, yeah, never let a good crisis go to waste.
That's how, and he's a progressive, which I don't think is that far from a communist, to be perfectly honest with you. And so you got to begin to wonder, and now you got people getting $30 is all they're allowed to get, 30 euros, which is worth a little less than a U.S. dollar right now.
Has it really dropped that
dropped,
badly?
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like 97 cents, I think.
Oh, my God. Why did it have to be the opposite when I was there a few years ago? I couldn't afford to buy anything. Now I'd be like, I'm living like a king.
But anyway, back to my point. That's the kind of insanity that leads to serious chaos in the streets, that leads to government crackdowns, and that leads to why bother having any more future elections? Because, we had to restore order, and God would only know what they would do in another election.
Ever seen the movie Z? You need to check that out. It takes place in the 60s, and Z. It's just simple one letter, Z. You got to check it out. It's pretty prescient.
So what do you think about my theory? Is it just completely half-baked or almost entirely baked?
Well, who knows? I mean, it's flip a coin. I mean, there in this day and age, in a global economy, there's all sorts of forces being exerted on governments and institutions, and absolutely, you could be right.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm looking at IMDb. I see one from 1969.
Yeah.
You think that's probably it?
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to check into it. Following the murder of a prominent leftist, an investigator tries to uncover the truth while government officials attempt to cover up their roles.
Yeah.
So it's about weight loss?
Covering up their roles.
Hey, try a girdle, mister.
No, but I mean, you'll see. It's I think it takes place in Greece, actually. But anyway.
It must, by these names.
Yeah. So
Vasilikos and Costa Gavras and
Costa Gavras,
yeah.
So check it out. I mean, it's kind of an interesting.
Papas is not a Greek name.
Yeah, right.
So is it going to have subtitles?
Yeah, but it's worth it.
I just don't read that fast.
Yeah, well, just play at half speed.
Half speed. Yeah, that would probably be an interesting, if not disturbing, visual. All right, when we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you that we have much more for you over there at usdatareview.com. And while there, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter.